Well, 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 well. This is the third time I've done this. No, well, second time really, but you know. Let's just check on stream. Let's just close that down. I didn't prepare well for any of this. Do you know why? Because I think I might not be that bright. So it is Sunday at 5:30. And let me give you an update on my last few... Oh, God, just move my microphone about. Hopefully it doesn't make loads of noise. My last few weeks of on and off. So I've been bike shedding on this project that you don't know anything about, which is fine. But on the part 1, part 2 of JavaScript, but it's X year, circa a decade ago, digging into Emberjs. Now, I think on my first stream, I did this, actually recorded this for 30 minutes a few weeks ago, and then made it private because I think I got divided on something else. Point is, I have been hanging out in Ember, not writing actually that much Ember. I've been sort of busy with life and stuff, bits and bobs. But what I have been doing, right, is hanging out with the community. And I'll tell you this, right, I have never, ever met a community as nice as the Ember community. They are development communities. They are so dedicated. They're so lovely. They're so helpful, and they are awesome. And I know a lot more about the framework now than I actually did. And I spent a lot of time. I've even made a couple of little contributions to their website just to sort of help them out with some stuff. And I might do a couple more because you really want to give back to them. You want to help them, and it makes you want to use Ember. The problem with Ember is right now is it doesn't really go in. The mental bundle of it should work, but it just kind of doesn't because it feels a little bit overkill for what a framework wants. So, well, I mean, it doesn't. But right, let me lay out the scene. Right, let's just go back, and in a minute I'm going to finish off because I restarted the Super Rentals tutorial. Right, after digging in through many loops. But let's just make this a little explanation of the lay of the land with Ember, just to give you an idea of it, because I think there aren't really any videos out there recently, that many, that speak about Ember from a new person's perspective, really, because it has fallen off massively in popularity. And this is coming from someone who really likes Rails. Allegedly something that's fallen off massively in popularity, and there's probably an order of magnitude more people using Rails than there are Ember. That being said, there's some stuff that make it super, mega, incredibly awesome. Some of it isn't out yet. So, what is Ember, right? So I know so much more. I'm better equipped to answer this question now. It is basically a full-stack framework, well, front-end framework, but it's like a... what's the best way to describe it? It feels almost like its entire own little framework. It's not just the render layer. It's not just some components. It's a lot more than that, in a way that's kind of awesome, and there's a few features in it that are actually super mega killer. So here we are. And what does this mean? I mean, the real key things are, right, I mean, I was always interested in the Ember Data stuff. The thing that's super interesting about Ember Data is warp-drive.io. The most interesting bit is this, and if we go here, because again, been hanging out with the actual people, I do know a few little things. Tap on the word docs and you get some documentation for it. So warp drive, right? What is Ember Data in a very simple way? Well, basically, it is like it's the best way to describe it. It's kind of like an ORM, right? But for your JSON. So instead of just doing a fetch, it builds it into an ORM. So if you have, let's go into the Learn Ember. It's probably in here somewhere. Ember Data. Yeah, so you create a model, and it looks a bit like this. Where are you? So there's just a fetch, but then if we do, where is it? Ember Data. There we go. You define a model. So inside your root, you create like a. Well, we're here in the root. We say model return store find all post, which confused me a little bit at first, and it sort of made sense again after I asked someone. That yeah, you create this in the root, which sort of feels like what a model should do, but you also have a model as well, which is more like an actual model. It's a bit weird. it's not actually, it's not weird in context of things, because you kind of need to do this. So if you use JSON API, which is like the spec, which is actually pretty sick, you can do this. So instead of just doing a fetch, you can say return. So this is it, the store. So it's a generic service that belongs to Ember. Find all posts. There we go, and that's going to return you everything you could want, ORM styling, and you can do, you know, your filtering, whatever. You can do all sorts of stuff inside your model. You set up your attributes. So you do attribute string, name, date, birthday, and you can do things like, again, in your model, you can set relationships, and this basically just delivers to your views exactly what you want, as well as things like states, right? Not in such a way that's super useful right now. However, this is one of the really cool features. So basically, like, you treat the front end of Ember the way you would like a monolithic application like Rails or something, right? The only difference is your Rails app or your Laravel or whatever it may be, whatever you're serving your API, has a serializer, right? So you just use a serializer. You can make this work with anything, but it prefers JSON API. So JSON API, the long and short of it is, my understanding is it's like a standardized layout for sort of like REST-ish APIs, but also you can sort of determine the relationships, so it can fetch the right amount of data and traverse all that stuff. It's kind of like, it's pretty cool. So instead of like, it's kind of like a halfway house between a regular like REST API and GraphQL. But it's not as much of a mess as GraphQL. It's very standardized. You sort of write it. It's really nice. It's really good, and I don't know why it isn't huge, which is getting me back onto my point of this thing here, Warp Drive. So this is probably their best chance of gaining some sort of relevance, I think. This thing is that Ember data thing, but pulled out right into a more agnostic package, right? This can work for everything. So data framework. So yeah. That's this is work in progress, all of this, by the way. This is also not out yet. So this is one of the new killer features. Warp Drive is incredibly cool. So if you go to requests, here we go. So you get to write stuff like this. A request component, you add your query, find record. This is in Ember. So this is something called humans. Humans? Oh, it's only got the Ember example. Lame. But anyway, this is where all your control flow stuff, right? So we can say, our request content, so what's returned from the request, and we just spit that on the template. We get things like, where is it? Boop, 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 boop. Basically, these are, you get your entire life cycle back, right? So you can also bring back, where is it? Is it in here? Builders? Oh, the docs aren't finished. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this. Basically, you get your states back, so you can have things like loading. It's a promise, right? So you get loading, you get like if there's an error, you get all this error handling, you get things like it's cancelable, for example, and you get the same. It's more declarative, I guess, in Ember data, but yeah, you get the same sort of like just you've got effectively like an ORM. This is see, this needs to be the documentation needs finishing. But yeah, anyway, so yeah. This is basically like almost like working with fetch, but you get a lot more richness out of the box. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and it works with TypeScript as well, which is nice. There we go. Here's a good example. So yeah, we've got request. There's your query, find record user, and then we're just asking for the first user, and then we've got errors. We've got content. We've got loading, and they're cancelable. It's super cool. It's really, really cool. It's really cool in Ember. It's going to be really cool as a library that other people can use as well, I think. So that's one of the coolest things. Ember data is incredibly cool. I think when you spend more time with it, which I certainly have not, I barely. It's also the biggest topic, I think, inside Ember. It does have some gotchas, which apparently Warp Drive mostly swerves, but this isn't out yet. The other thing as well is if we just go to let's just do Emberjs GitHub. I can't type. Can I type? There we go. I visit often. I visit a few times, not super often. And if we go into, is there Emberjs? Ember website? Ember website GitHub. We can see Ember Learn and website. So yeah, we can see. I think we've got some. I can't remember where it is. Oh, okay. Emberjs. Template tag form. Okay, it is in the guides. Nice. Let's just go 6.5. So this has been around for a little while. So previously, you have handlebars. I like handlebars. I like handlebars quite a lot. But they've moved to the single template thing that Vue and Svelte uses. Apart from it's got some extra nice little wrinkles to it that are pretty awesome. So they're bringing out. It's already out. Like the thing is the way. Okay, I'll get into that in a minute. This is like anyway template. There we go. We've got a GJS file. So previously you'd have a handlebars file. Handlebars doesn't allow you to write JavaScript in line, right? Handlebars is just markup, right? Which is part of why it's cool. I quite like handlebars, but you'd have to sidecar JavaScript files. Now I've got single components. GJS is Glimmer.js or GTS, which is TypeScript, because TypeScript's getting first-party support. And yeah, you can do stuff like this. But also, we can say, by default, it will automatically export it, right? But also, you can do it as a class. But also, you can do, is it in here? Yeah, so that's pretty standard stuff. But also, there we go, nested components. Where is it? Oh, there's no example of it. Basically, you could like have a master component. You don't, because it's just a JavaScript file ultimately, that also gets to mix in some handlebars. It does some other stuff, so it hasn't got a single where it's classes. You could export multiple other components from one component and export them individually. It's pretty overkill, but you can technically do that. It's sort of like it's really basically, long story short, it's super crazy ass flexible. And it's more declarative, and it's much more quote-unquote normal compared to having the sidecar JavaScript thing and hooking it up to your component. The component system inside Ember seems so far, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, so there we go. That's quite nice. And the reason why you don't see any of this, so that's two of the sort of highlight things from it, which I think are actually pretty killer. The fact that there's like the other things are pretty cool actually. So previously, if you had watched this stream, which is no one here watching it, you've got the testing, which I was skipping before, and I was very wrong to have skipped it because the testing inside Ember is really damn good. So again, it's the sort of thing of separating fashion from utility, right? So Ember tests are really nice. So by default, it generates tests for everything. They're really hot on testing. And yeah, the tests run in the browser. I think it uses, what's it called? QUnit? QUnit. So it's like an old, really old, or I think it's a fork of QUnit. But it's like the jQuery test suite, right? And you're like, why would you use that? Why would you use like, I don't know, like Jest or like, what's it called? Vue, Vitesse, you know? Vitesse, sorry, not Vitesse. Vitesse. So it's like, well, that's the default thing though, right? But basically, if you have, I mean, I'll show you because I restarted this and actually bothered to write the tests. So if I come into here, let's just quit this for example. We're inside my super rentals, and let's do Ember TS. Give this a little run. Is it running? Let's see if it's running. And what it's going to do, boop. Do you see that? So it's run this. If I then create a new window, let's grab this one out, and I go to localhost 4200, boop, and I go back to here. Oh, there you go. Localhost, what is it? 7. There we go. It's picked it up, and that's picked up Safari. So we've got Chrome and Safari running some tests. It's got Safari-specific tests. Should be running. Localhost, was it 7.357? There we go. So now we've got the same thing in Safari. Pretty cool. And then, so we see we've got a little window down here. What we can do is, you'll see it happen so fast you'll probably miss it. If we go back, get out of hide, run all tests, you'll see, zoop! It runs in the browser. So not only are they all by default in the browser. There we go. Runs again. All the clicks of the test we run as part of the training, which is it's pretty cool in principle. However, it also means because it runs in the browser, it means you can avoid things like mocks. It means that also you can add breakpoints. So you can actually visually, interactively debug while you're running your tests in the test itself. The syntax of the test is fine. It's a lot like Jest. It's not bad. It's completely fine. Nothing wrong with it. But the thing of having it run in the browser by default, having everything generate a test by default, the test story is actually really strong, like really cool. So here we go. How to debug tests. So it does integration tests. It does component tests. You can either run together or individually. And you simulate. It's sort of so it's a mix. It's like a lightweight mixture of like mixing Cypress and like Jest together in one place, right? Like Playwright almost in one place. It's cool. It's really cool. So here we go. Writing test and application code. The execution of the test may fail. You can add debugger to your code and check intermediate states. You can add this line to both test and application code. Thanks to Emberjs setup, you can also use pause test and resume test to debug your tests. Simply add await pause test to test your code, then save. When the test reaches the line, it will pause, allowing you to expect, and just type resume in the console to continue. It's sick. It's actually sick. And it makes you want to write. It actually makes you want to write tests. Because the tests are actually quite satisfying to write. Not many things. I think the only thing I've had that experience with where I actually want to write tests is probably Elixir. Because Elixir, you have like document tests and stuff, so you can like write the docs for like a method and then a method function. That's not a method. It's a FP language. Yeah, so you write the docs for a function, and that is basically the test in a way, right? So you get like loads of parts of tests for free. Very satisfying, and all testing's like in the core of Emberjs, not Ember, Elixir. It's great. So the testing's very good. The other thing they take really seriously is maintainability. So, and they have like they seem quite bureaucratic. So they have an RFC, which is request for comment process. So that means like if someone wants to propose a big sweepy changey guy. So you can go into here, releases, and just do RFCs. That's what this is. I think somewhere they explain the process. You can look at all of the RFCs that are currently in process and how long they take. I don't know how long it all takes. There's one for Discord. Move the Ember chat to Discord in 2019, and they obviously did it. I don't really fully get this yet, but it's kind of cool. And part of that is they get feedback from the community, but also they take maintainability super seriously. Like super seriously. So they run applications for ages. We go into their releases and how it works. You go to overview, I think, and it says, shipping new features without breaking your existing application. An LTS, so you get LTS, I think, once every how often? 6-week releases, and then also it's all Semver, which is by the by, whatever. Add new features that don't break existing apps through backwards compatibility and optional feature flags. So loads of stuff is backwards compatible. And the stuff I mentioned earlier about the GJS templating and all the other fancy shit with Warp Drive and whatever, you can use Warp Drive and Ember Data side by side, or you can use like the GJS templates and the HBS templates, and they can coexist, right? It's pretty cool. So they're very, very they take it seriously, and that works back quite a few versions. I think they're reducing the amount of versions they support because the stuff coming up is very, very different. But it's really interesting. So LTS for 54 weeks. So teams will go to the apps and free and keep getting security updates. You can incrementally fix stuff. They've got like code mods and like transformation tools. So if you get things that are broken, if you update, you can run a little guy and it'll fix up. So they try and bring you along as much as possible. I think it's not so much harder to get. I don't think it's like a case of like you can continuously upgrade, because obviously that's not reality, right? But I think the path to getting an Ember app from like an old version to a new one is pretty good, and also you can increment your way there quite easily in a way it's quite stable. So if there's new features you need, you can implement them or move parts of your framework forward, I think. So they take it really seriously, and the stability is a really big deal for them. It's actually, again, very, very impressive. Provide automated tooling for upgrades and syntax changes. Only make breaking change when you really, really have to. Give developers a way to test drive the latest, greatest features on their own terms. So part of that is those new things I showed you. Where are they? Well, they do this other thing, right? So you look at releases. I'm not familiar with this idea of additions. So an addition, and they explain it quite badly, I think, on the website. But they explain the RFC concept again. Explain badly, but long story short, an addition is like a major feature set, right? So let's say, or not a feature set, a major milestone for the application. So versions come out every once in a while. I think one came out a couple of weeks ago. Since I've been playing with it, one's come out, like a 0.5 release or something's come out. But yeah, this one is not released yet, and this one already is. So since 2019, I think it's like an era of an application. They have like a stable benchmark of the way this application works, where really big features I don't think actually change. And then they have another milestone, or again, addition, which is upcoming. And the next one is Polaris, which comes the other stuff. So let's look at it, right? So ignore that bit. It's very much, they write all this stuff very much for their own community, because I think they've realised how, well, they have realised how small they are, chatting to them. But they do want to grow. So yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, first class TypeScript, that's like all devs in, like, so they're building a load of tooling. They're so busy, and they're so productive. They're building a lot of tooling, and a lot of it is really heavily geared towards TypeScript. I personally kind of hate TypeScript, but whatever. Template tag components. So here we go. The template tag syntax. Embroider build system. I didn't even mention this. This is such a big deal for them, but not really if you're coming from the outside, because it kind of is a big piece of, so like, I'm going to mangle this explanation. So they've got their own little, like, if you're using Vite or something, right, or Webpack, they've got their own thing. So there's a CLI in Ember, right, and it's pretty cool. You can generate all kinds of stuff. It's really good. It's like Rails or whatever. So you can say, well, add me a route. It'll add you the template files, add you the route to the routes file. It'll generate everything you need and a bunch of other stuff. It's really cool, as well as installing add-ons, right? And given the fact that you can install, like, let's say you've got an old version. I think I might be misquoting here, right? This is very much me not necessarily representing reality, so I could be wrong. But like, say if you've got quite an old install or quite an old instance, right, on a certain version, things from versions long after you have installed oftentimes will work. And I think they had a very overcomplicated automagical sort of build system, which is apparently heavy and horrible. And I've seen firsthand pulling down. We're used to a world of like, Vite builds being like almost instantaneous, right? Their builds, and also given the way like reactivity works in Ember, is kind of like, I don't really understand it. Just kind of, you don't have to really question it. It works like signals. It's really cool, actually. Using it day to day, like the like responsivity stuff's actually really awesome. If you use spells like that, it's signalsy. It's really cool. It's not like it's like signals. Anyway, yeah. So they had this crazy old school kind of crap build system. I mean, it's one of those things where like fundamentally what it did was crazy, but very, very powerful. But also it means that builds are slow. I think things can be brittle as well. So they're basically building a brand new build system, which they've called Embroider. It's actually been around for 5 years, because again, they think they wait and make sure that things are very stable and very battle tested before they even release them to the wild. But you can use them right now, so that's why you can use all these features, because again, between these additions, you can use these canary features. So instead of being like a beta tester when, I don't know, like the shit with like React hooks and stuff like that, right? So you don't sort of just go along with, do you know what I mean? Like, you don't just have this constant thing and then reel back. They go a bit slower in a way that's kind of cool, maybe a little bit too slow. But yeah, this thing's Embroider's new build system. Basically, TLDR, it's Vite. Plus, well, so it makes their crazy build stuff work with Vite. So you just use Vite, and it goes from build time. So I've pulled down a couple of Ember projects, and some of the build times have been pretty atrocious. So I can't comment because a lot of them aren't using the Vite stuff now, but I imagine it'll be a hell of a lot faster. Even base build times take like 4 seconds to build any project in Ember. But yeah, there seems to be a big improvement. I don't know that many of the ins and outs, because I think part of it is like they had they had exports before JavaScript did or something. Like, there's loads of other crazy stuff because I don't know the history, right? Doesn't matter. The point is, with this you get a modern style build system, and it's pretty good. Reactivity improvements. So auto tracking is pretty cool. I don't know what the previous reactivity system, but yeah, reactivity in Ember is pretty good actually. I don't really know much about this. So first introduce the concept of resources. The pattern is a general concept that extends beyond Ember and to any framework. So look, I don't know enough about this part of it. This guy, or girl, I don't know, whatever. They, very helpful person. Very, very lovely. Ember resources. Right, so, I don't know enough about this. Usage in Ember, there we go. Boop. Okay. So, Ember resources take, okay. Function clock, return resource. I can't be asked to take this in, but anyway, sounds fun. I'll have to pay attention when it comes about. Anyway, check out the Starbeam project. Done. This is simple and fun reactivity. Yeah. Is there a performance improvement in this? Well, we will see. I think basically, like the sort of long and short of it is, it feels a lot more normal if you've come from somewhere else. I think as the next version. I don't know when it's coming out. I think it's soon. TM. But yeah, that's some of my learnings from hanging out with the Ember people. Using it, like I've not used anything big yet. I've only sort of done little play projects with it. I keep like dragging my heels on building something semi-real in it because I can't be bothered. It's it's pretty low boilerplate. Actually prepping an API I mean, you can just sort of like just give it like just JSON or whatever if you want, but where's the fun in that? But yeah, prepping the API stuff is boring. That's the step I need to take. I'm not bothered doing it. Well, no, I have done it, to be honest. I do it very briefly with a real project and hook them up. And there was there's some teething stuff for like overfetching information, which was definitely my fault rather than their fault. But yeah, like the overall experience using Ember is actually quite nice. I think the thing that sort of lets it down ultimately in the minute is, I think, you know, my assessment of it so far would be, I'm very keen to use it, but that's more because I kind of just want to, like, there's such a nice community. You just kind of want to you feel like, oh, I want to use this because then I'm sort of like showing support for whatever. Because I like underdogs, right? I like underdog tools, so it makes you want to use it. But then actually, sort of like, you know, because you've got the uniformity of the front end, which is nice. So it's not like a bunch of it's regimented and it's sensible. So you can always know where things are. It's the same stuff I like about Rails and Laravel and that sort of thing. That batteries included approach really appeals to me, right? Because you don't have to reinvent. I don't like wheel reinvention, so you don't have to keep reinventing these wheels and like forcing all this convention, because the convention's built in for you, and also it's like 10 years old, so the conventions work, right? And then so if you go to like, you forget that where it's like not very sexy and also publicly basically not talked about at all at this point, you forget the amount of companies using it. Look at this: TED, Netflix, Heroku, Microsoft, LinkedIn, still big users, Blue Apron, Intercom, Zendesk. Yeah, it's pretty bananas. There's a whole bunch of companies using it. A whole bunch of companies. But yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, like, so you get all those things built in. So I think for like larger products or projects you want to live for a long time, I think it's actually a pretty good idea to use it still. People talk about speed a lot. I mean, it doesn't feel slow. There's some magic that, like, it's not super magical, it's not too bad again, but I've not been far enough into the weeds on it, so everything I've done so far is very vanilla, so it's pretty hard to say what are some of those sort of like foot gunning aspects of it. The thing that makes you feel off is the fact that where the community is very small, albeit they are lovely and very helpful, super mega helpful, the broader community is almost non-existent at this point, which is very sad to see. Not non-existent, it's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but by comparison, right? If you want to try and find a recent tutorial of someone using this in the wild to do a thing, and I found this with Rails, right? Because Rails is not fashionable. You get the same thing with .NET, whatever. The thing is, these things sort of like slowly burrow their way underground because the hype dies. So that means like the public-facing information dies out because this lives inside business and that information is not shared publicly anymore, right? There's people not on YouTube or you know, like people shilling it for either monetary gain or because they're brand new users to an ecosystem, because it's, broadly speaking, mature, very boring, and that information stays inside businesses. It's the same with Rails, right? But then once you get through that Rails barrier of how do I do this, it's actually pretty rich, because the Rails community is also super awesome, but there's a shitload more of them, and it gives you an idea of the relative popularity of the two projects. So if you need support getting something done, it's not that hard. It's pretty easy, to be honest, to get your head around. At least at the bottom there it is. If you've used handlebars before, it's pretty cool. Handlebars, I've always used handlebars in the context of like SSGs and like quite simple stuff. So I'm not sure how it really holds up for a more complex like templating language, or like scenarios where you kind of want like something, you know, as much as I bitch about JSX, it's also you have just JavaScript, right? Like right there to do whatever you want. Again, part of that is what makes React kind of messy, but like it is useful. But yeah, I'm not sure, because the syntax inside handlebars gets a little bit weird when you push it a little bit too hard. So, but then I've not used it long enough to get comfy with it in that scenario. So again, I'm, you know, yeah, overall it's super interesting. Ember Inspect is another one that's pretty cool. It's pretty decent. You get a bunch of these sort of like inspect tools. There's one for Vue, which I've used quite a lot. It's very similar to that. Routing is pretty cool. What are we doing? Yeah, the routing's pretty good. I don't super love file-based routing. I like this sort of style thing more, which is quite good. So yeah, if you've got a route, multiple routes, and there we go, you can set a new path for it. And then if you're doing a link, you just set the route in like an instance variable styly, and then you say about, and then it does the routing. The routing works, and you can do nesting, do that sort of stuff. It's pretty good. Yeah, and all we do is, if you do Ember generate route post new, it will just do that for you, which is pretty cool. So yeah, overall, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's way cooler than people give it credit. And I'm just, it's just a little bit sad that like there's no, it's not in the sort of like no one talks about it anymore kind of thing. But hopefully with the new release, with the Polaris stuff comes out, hopefully that might help them. Again, I'm not entirely, I'm probably gonna like so the project in I have in mind, right? I think I said this on my initial part of the stream was, which is like, I don't know, I actually put that stream private, I think, because it became me and an IRL friend just chatting about it for an hour. But the original thing is, I have a project about Rails. It's moderately appy. There's a handful of places where the front end kind of really wants to be in something very heavily JavaScripty, and doing that using, so the current front end is built. It's not finished. The front end's not finished. The back end's basically done for the most part. There's a few little bits and bobs to iron out, but structurally almost everything's there for like an MVP of this thing. And I was like, I need to finish off the front end of it, right? And while I was building it, I was smashing my face against Hotwire for months and months and months and months. And I don't think I like Hotwire. I think it's great if you've got like for sprinklies. If you want to sprinkle something, you've got something cruddy you want to sprinkle, it's great. Anything beyond that, it's horrendously entangled. So yeah, like, so I don't know. I can't. I'm not going to go into the full why Hotwire is bad thing, to be honest. But yeah, Hotwire doesn't really cut it, right? You can, but it's not going to be very maintainable. Hotwire's like, if people say that Rails is too magical, I've always said that Rails isn't actually that magical. Ruby's very magical, but Rails isn't actually that magical. It's just lots and lots of conventions and lots of DSLs backed by a really, really strong API. It's not that magical if you just understand it. The magic kind of fizzles away pretty quickly, and you know, it's just lots and lots of niceties that makes Rails more pleasant to use, and they can be avoided. You can read the source code. The source code's actually a delight to read. Yeah. However, Hotwire's magic as fuck, man. It's like, it's crazy. Like, they release Hotwire morphing, so like that's basically taking whatever your next result is and your current result, and it sort of like does a diff on the DOM and then only replace the elements that have changed. So like you get this sort of pseudo SPA vibe, really like for literally free, which sounds great on paper but actually falls the fuck apart really quickly in practice. You've got turbo streams, which like basically like writing functions but in Ruby instead of JavaScript. But then also you've got stimulus, which also binds to stuff, and then you write like methods in there, and you have then to stimulus controllers, and then you've got turbo frames, which are kind of like iframes, but then stimulus, then streams can target them, or you can do it automatically, or you can do it's a big mental model to sift through. I think it's one of those things that either doesn't jive with people or it does. With me, I'm very much in the side of it doesn't jive with me. It doesn't really make sense with me. So I just can't get my head around it. I can get my head around it, but I can make use of it. Like the minute you like run into like one of the rough edges, there's moments where you go, "This is fantastic," and the minute you hit any sort of roadblock, it just the whole mental model falls apart, and then you're trying to satisfy this kind of slightly weird framework in order to achieve something in some cases quite simple, like it can build in like race conditions and stuff inside the interface, and it gives you very few tools to really deal with it. And when you're sort of doing half markup, like server rendered stuff, replacement mixed with JavaScript as well, so you've got the stimulus side which is pure JS, so you're like you can interact with like the turbo stuff inside Hotwire to make it do the right thing, but it becomes really messy and really overwhelming. And then if you think someone else is ever going to visit this code base and they're not used to it, they're going to really, really fucking struggle because they've got all of that mental load, right? And if you're learning a full framework, that's cool, right? You can get like, you know, if you have a bit of orientation in something like Rails with someone sat by you, you'll get into it pretty quickly and find your way through pretty quickly. And although it's got like a steeper uphill to get into it, once the month more sort of sunk in, you're really productive, right? That's the trade-off. You don't like it's maybe slightly more like opinionated, but then what you're trading is productivity for that, right? And like stability and all that sort of stuff. Lack of surprises going forward by just sharing some of that convention, like consensus. But yeah, when you've got that on the front end as well, and it's kind of weird, and it's very much driven by. So I think someone said like, okay, right, so it's a bit like LiveView, but kind of worse. It's harder to reason about than LiveView or Livewire inside Laravel, which I don't like either. But actually, after spending more time with Hotwire, I like it more than Hotwire, which is a low bar because I don't like Livewire either. But yeah, so it's and LiveView I quite like. LiveView's pretty cool, but yeah, it's just hard. It's a hard mental model to get your head around and to become productive in. And also it's very brittle, and I think it's going to be very hard to maintain unless you're very familiar. So I think someone sat down and was like, hey, we've got we can controller action. What if it was a case of when you hit a controller action, something in the interface can happen based on the result of that controller action, right? So if I update something and I want this counter to update in real time, I'll just attach a thing to it and then the JS will respond to it. And it's like, okay, that sounds great in principle, but in reality, like fine-grained reactivity is much much more to it than that, right? And then like the minute you get to those like fine-grained reactive things, they just go, well, just use stimulus. It's like, well, yeah, but stimulus is just it's vanilla ES6 like JavaScript, which I really like, and it uses like JavaScript classes, which I really like. I actually quite like stimulus. Stimulus is really cool, but then it's like you're just on your own then, right? So instead of having a framework, you've got bits of sort of a framework, and then you've got a lot of bespoke stuff you've got to write and then maintain yourself. And as much as I hate the churn in JavaScript, I do like being able to say, hey, import this little library and just have it do the thing for me. But then also things like stimulus does not do reactivity whatsoever. There isn't any controls for it. It's just, well, you can hack it in, but then you're on your own, right? You're writing that. You haven't got a system. So it's like, because stimulus is basically a couple of steps past what jQuery was in terms of sort of it's a more rational version of jQuery, effectively, with vanilla JavaScript. But I do like stimulus. It's pretty cool. I've used it outside of Rails as well, which is kind of weird. But anyway, that was a big diversion. The point was, that was the project I'm working. It was the front end was Hotwire. I was like, I can't, necessarily. And I was like, should I just use View Component and stick with Hotwire? Should I look down? There's another thing which you can get. There's two more things inside Rails land. So you've got View Component, which is basically for a component system for Rails. Rails does not ship components. It has partials, so it's a little bit old school. And View Component is a component system of Rails. View Component's really good, like really, really cool. It solves a lot of problems. Rails partials are okay-ish. I don't like it. Components are better. I don't know why it doesn't have first-party components. There's swings and roundabouts benefits to having a benevolent dictator for life. DHH is right about a lot of things. He's wrong, and extremely wrong, about some other things. So And that's one of those things where I think he's on the wrong side of history. Is with not putting first-party components. View components should be a first-party package, and maybe by GitHub. It's very good. But I was like, yeah, should I stick with view component plus like stimulus and the Hotwire shit? And no, basically no. I really like view component for like websites. If it's a website, fantastic. If it's an app, nope, it doesn't solve it because there's the Hotwire part that lets it down. So I was like, what do I do? And there's Inertia.js. So Inertia is like a pseudo automagical connector. Basically, like if you've got a root, you return that root to Inertia, and that return. So basically, you have like an instance of like whatever, like say you've got like React or Vue or Svelte, whatever running, and then basically Inertia just takes the root, and then when you have the corresponding file names, it just returns the data to it basically. So it's like working inside something like Blade or ERB, but instead the thing that receives it is just like your framework of choice. And I was like, that seems like a cool way to go. But then also there's lots of wheel reinvention inherent in, not so much in Vue. In React, I don't like React, and I don't really like Svelte that much either. I should like Svelte, but I just kind of don't. I had a bad experience with Svelte. Basically, I don't like SvelteKit. I don't like SSR. JavaScript SSR is just dumb. I don't get the point of it. Let's anyway, let's not get into that. But anyway, so I was like, yeah, that could work, you know. Apparently there's some issues with it. Again, Rails doesn't embrace Inertia.js first party, and it really super duper should, but they just kind of don't, which is crap and stupid, but whatever. So yeah, and I was like, well, just build an API and just do something else. And that's when I got to Embers. Like, again, it's got a bit of structure, it's got that batteries included thing. It does again have quite a heavy like if you aren't into, give me 1 second. Yeah, if you aren't into the batteries included thing or the opinionated framework thing, you might struggle. I think it takes quite a while. Like, it's got a mental model to it. It's not actually that hard to get your head around. It has got a bunch of conventions, but they're not too bad. They're not too bad if you're used to it. If you come from like Laravel or Rails or something like that, then you'll probably get on board with it moderately quickly. Which are like specific foibles. So I'm not sure where to go from here, to be honest, because I feel like there's a part of me that still doesn't really. I'm not really good doing God just staying on topic today. There's a part of me that really just doesn't want to maintain an API, to be honest with you, and have to, because it's a one man project. It's this specific one, right? I don't have to work with, and it's like a thing where I'm hitting MVP. But then certain functionalities are tied to having things like dragging and dropping and ordering stuff and doing select states and then performing actions on them and stuff like that. But you can, yeah, but like the overhead inside something. And I've kicked some of these tires already, right? I've used a bunch of like the popular gems inside Rails, and it's just not quite. I don't quite have the degree of control I kind of need to make it compelling. So I do need to do something with more JavaScript. And I don't want to make it a complete mess, because also if you walk away from some of the Hotwire stuff and then come back, it's incomprehensible sometimes, because there's this like weird paper trail of logical assumptions you have to make to understand how something has changed, which again doesn't really sit well. Hotwire is really hard to learn and get your head around. So just because the mental model is really heavy, like let's say for example you have a turbo frame, right, which you can think of as like an iframe, but it's a reactive iframe, right? So let's say we are pulling out a chunk of a website onto another section of the website. So let's say for example, like if I post a form, the contents of this will change, right? So on post so yeah, on the post action of the resource, like relative to it, I will, as part of that, I will return the line which will update this, right? Or if I update this and it's already in a frame, it'll get picked up and re-rendered anyway if it changes. Or you can use a stream to push a change or append something on a list or whatever. But then it doesn't always work like that, and every time it doesn't work like that, you're doing something weird that's hard to keep in your mind. It's a crappy system. It's just, I don't like it. But But yeah, part of me doesn't want to maintain an API, right? Which is a pain in the ass. You still that same thing, right? Ember's kind of not a bad way, and it's quite compatible with Rails because the guy who originally wrote it, I think, was previously a Rails core team member. So you've got some commonality there. However, you've still got to build two applications. And also the ancillary stuff in Rails is so damn good. Things like device for authentication is great. There's loads of really good front-end gems. Really good front-end gems. For like all sorts of things. Permission management, authentication. Well, authentication is obviously device. There's a ton. There's just a shitload. I can give you two examples, but bear with me. It's Sunday night. But yeah, part of me doesn't want to bother maintaining a thing, but there's no alternatives in Rails land. There was a thing called Stimulus Reflex, which, and again, that thing of when you've got, oh, well, I didn't know this is a thing. Let's do Stimulus Reflex Rails. Let's just do a search. There we go. And this seems to have sort of like bowed down now that Hotwire's out, so we'll step aside. But this seemed like also kind of cool, but I've not looked into it because effectively I think it's on its way to being extinct. But yeah, this seemed pretty cool. Transaction UI update takes place through persistent open connection on server. So basically it's like WebSockets, and it returns like, and you ask. Yeah, here we go. So button date reflex click command. Yeah, exactly. So you just fire off actions, but it takes the entire life cycle. This looks kind of cool. To be honest, but I don't. Yeah, but this has kind of died. It's not died. It's still supported. And it's still working, right? But let's go to GitHub last month. Yeah, so 2,500 stars. It's a project in use. Yeah, notice complexity imposed full stack front end frameworks, and it's fast. It works seamlessly. Rails tools you already know and love. But yeah, I think basically they sort of bowed down and said, yeah, we're not gonna. We think that. I think one of the authors of this was like, yeah, I think that you should use Hotwire instead. I'm like, what? This seems like a much more coherent system than Hotwire. But then again, like if it's on its way out, why would you bother using it? Oh, hello there. I'm just talking about some stuff. Mostly about Emberjs and various other things to do with JavaScript frameworks and Rails. So, may or not be interesting to you. But yeah, so I don't really get the point of picking up Stimulus Reflex if the case it's sort of kind of on its way out. I'm not sure if there's. When was the last release? Releases, how often do they happen in? Yeah, so that's the guy, Marco Roth. May 22nd, one in December 2024. Okay, so a couple of releases a year. I think okay. 3.5, when's the last big one? 3.5, 3.5, 3.54. So there's no big, so since, when's the last bit? Well, 3.5 was in 2024. That's a long change log. Previously, what was its cadence like? 3.5. Okay, so yeah, it took a while. So I don't know. So this guy here, Marco Roth, he's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy. Very big into Rails. But yeah, there's no alternatives. I cannot review your project. To be honest. No. What is it in, actually? What you're in it in? Bear in mind, I'm a designer by trade, so I'll be brutal. What's this, GemSH? Interesting. Gem.sh. What have you written it in? Yeah, so going back to my main point, so I'm sort of continuing my conversation myself. So yeah, I don't see the point of picking up stimulus reflex if, yeah, even all the main contributors are saying use hotwire instead. So that leaves you in a situation where you've kind of got no options left. And a thing called flex, which is like flex.fun. Yeah, which you can, it's basically like, instead of being like ERB, it's a pure Ruby. Fast enough. I don't know what that means. So yeah, and this can do some of I think it do a good chunk. I mean, I've not looked at anywhere near enough because I'm like, I don't want to write. If you use something like Haml or anything in the past, I don't want to revisit a world when you're writing a pseudo language to write HTML in. No, you're alright. Just that bit just bounces me off. But I think you can do some responsive stuff in there or reactive stuff. I haven't actually even tried out Flex, to be honest. Should I? I mean, I don't know how far it could take you. You have to build your own little pseudo framework thing in it. So yeah, again, screw that. So those are your kind of options, right? So you've got inertia, you've got hotwire, you've got stimulus reflex on its way out, and sort of, kind of, maybe Flex. There's also one more thing called Glimmer DSL for Rails, for DSL for Ruby or something. And this looks, I don't know, I'm not spending time looking at it, in part because I've observed this guy, Andy Obtiva, on the internet, and the guy comes across like an asshole, which makes me not want to support any of the stuff he does, because he's very, very condescending with people and he's very rude, which makes me not want to help him or look at anything he's built. So that's the end of that. It's not super popular, 700 stars. Yeah. So originally, this was for building GUI apps inside Ruby, but he did one for Glimmer DSL for web. There we go. Has this got anyone using it? 192 stars, but he is maintaining it. The Rails are front-end frameworks. Let's have a look. So we've got document ready. There we go. So we've wound out a div. Okay. Let's see your count. You got a little counter example. Has he got a counter example? I hate this. It's horrible. This looks like Flex. Where are we? On click. Yeah. Event if. Yeah. No. This sounds like this. This does. Yeah. I don't like this. This stinks of something he wrote for himself. Yeah. Nah. So yeah, you're out of options, right? So then you've got do you just stick with Hotwire and suffer through the pain for a project that may not see light of day, or have anyone ever use it, or have more developers working on it in reality? Do you use something that's kind of a bit old, with sort of not old, kind of quite modern, but sort of a bit underrated, with a small community and not many resources to lean on to help with learning, to an extent that I've not experienced? Or something that's getting phased out, well, not phased out, but in probably support mode. I think, what does it say here about stimulus reflex? This seems the most interesting out of all of them, right? So let's look. So if you just do quick start, not watching a video. Yeah, there we go. So recent. So yeah, hang on, let's read this properly because I don't know enough. I like this. I read this previously. You're only alive for a short while, and learning any new technology is a sacrifice of time spent with those with you love, creating art or walking in the woods. Every framework you learn is a lost opportunity to build something you could really matter to the world. Please choose responsibly. That's really cute. I wish more things did that. It might strike as odd that it would start by questioning whether you want to need this library at all. A motivation, an extension of the question. Okay. Do we still need React? Because Rails people hate writing JavaScript. Not all of them. A lot of them don't give a shit. But actually, I think I'd argue probably the most popular or the most prevalent setup of Rails currently nowadays, apart from the big hitters, is probably React, right? Rails API with React. So don't want to watch that video. Nothing against Chris, but I find his videos a little bit hard to follow. Although my first learnings of Rails were via one of his courses. Goers is good. They update things enough, but Goers is good. There are two ways to enable stimulus reflex in projects. Use data reflex attributes, declare a reflex without any code, or call the stimulate method inside a stimulus controller. Okay, stimulate. Okay. We can use these techniques interchangeably, and both of them is trigger a server-side reflex action in response to users interacting with your UI. So, yeah, there you go. So that's the counter. That's your counter example, right? So you just do, data reflex, click, counter, increment. So where's our corresponding? It's around somewhere. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So yeah, this is basically how you write stimulus as well, right? So you have like a data controller you attach, and then you attach an action to something, which then goes to the corresponding method inside that controller. So, and this also works as well. Like this is very again, stimulus reflex is very stimulusy, right? So data count, and then we've okay. Why are we okay? So we're chucking out a little bit of ERB there for some reason. Don't know why. Use the data attributes to declaratively tell stimulus to pay special attention to this anchor link. The data reflex attribute allows us to map an action to the client to code that we execute on the server. While click and change are two of the most common events, you can mouse over drop play. Okay, weird. Would you caution you to be careful with events that can trigger many times in short periods, such as scroll, drag, resize, and mouse move. It's possible to use debounce to reduce how many instances. Okay, so just debounce. That's pretty self-explanatory. Let's zoom in a little bit. Let's make this text a bit bigger. Those attributes of data step and data count are used to pass on data to the server. There are, so argument's fine. Okay, so the reflex is Ruby. It's not JavaScript. Okay, that's interesting. So application reflex def increment. Yeah. Okay, element data set count, to integer, plus, okay. Step to I. Fun. Okay, so, okay, that's cool. Fair, alright, okay. So, that's, that's pretty cool. Would it be fast? Ruby ain't fast. Ruby ain't known for being fast. Stimulus reflex maps your request. It's fast enough. It's fine. Yeah. Okay. Consulting managing state and rendering views that handle server-side instance variables setting up reflex action combined with cache fragments. Oh, okay. Yeah, because another thing that's really good inside ELB and stuff is like the caching's really good. Like Ruby's caching's great. Magic loads no magic. What the user sees is exactly what they'll see if they refresh the page in their browser. Reflex keeps a one-to-one relationship between the application state and what was visible in the browser, so you can continue to manage state in the client. This translates to a massive reduction in application complexity and frees you to spend time in features instead of states and connotation. This is one thing that Ember does really well. So in its default state, if you set something as reactive, it's just globally there. It's just globally reactive, right? So if you just have it, so it creates so Ember data keeps an entire store of your application state. So automatically, right? So you mark something as a tracked or auto tracking, whatever. Like if you mark it as reactive, then it keeps all of that in memory, and then when you persist it, it just goes and it's sort of like it just manages itself. It's pretty magic. It's pretty cool. And this seems similar. So that's fun. So yeah, managing state and hydration stuff, that's a pain in the ass. Again, if you're doing like server rendered stuff, if it's on the page. It's on the page. I am down in principle with the idea of the HTML over the wire thing, or like the thing that HTMX does, but I feel like it needs more structure. Even if it makes it more work, things being more work doesn't necessarily make them worse, right? If the work is there to rationalize what's going on, it's not wasted effort. I don't think. Just littering a bunch of tags inside HTML to make reactivity work feels very counterintuitive to me. So, such a more granular control. Some foundation stimulus provides we can port stimulus reflex. Hang on a second. Let's build our increment counter example using stimulus control and monitoring a reflex by calling this stimulate. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that so much. So, yep, there we go. This is stimulus code. So yeah, declare the appropriate data in HTML. Create a client-side stimulus reflex control in JavaScript. Create a server-side reflex object with Ruby. Create a server-side example controller Ruby. So data controller counter, data action, click, counter, increment. There we go. So we're firing this up. So I probably do this and just manage all of it through stimulus rather than dicking about with anything else. So because like stimulus is pretty fine. This is just how stimulus works. Yeah, data action, click action, so it's action. Then you've got so you can have multiple controls attached to something. So you're saying control to controller and then method in controller, right? So like that's that syntax there. So if we've got like if the wrapper has like another controller around it, we can actually fire off events into other controllers. So you're just saying, yeah, on click in the counter controller, increment. One problem I do like we have with stimulus is it's like this stuff, while great on paper, can get a little bit verbose, but it swings around nice. Overall, I really like stimulus. It's the part of that. Yeah, it's the part of Hotwire that I like the most. I think it's just a kind of nice little JavaScript framework. It's great. So, Tiny. This is almost all of it. We could chat quickly about stimulus. I'm a big fan of stimulus. Wasn't at first. There's part of me which is like, yeah, it's time. Stimulus is great. Right, so. Okay, so, and then we're doing this with. Okay, so you just call that bit of Ruby from the stimulus controller. So that's kind of what I was expecting, but this stimulate counter increment. Yeah, so we've got it with a capital C. So yeah, we've got, where is it? Yeah, counter. Yeah, so counter. There we go. Increment. Where are we? Yeah, counter increment. Fun, and it uses the stimulus thingy, the stimulus sort of style of doing things. So it feels quite native to stimulus. I think I can see why this came around. This sort of part of this feels very, very sensible to me already, or better. Okay. So, because there's more, they're like, oh, it's more writing, but you can't trust what Rails people say about how much you shouldn't be writing something, because they're like, write basically nothing. It's like, no, if it's useful to write more stuff to understand what the thing's doing and not being a mind reader, it's fine, you know. But anyway, so. Is that kind of it? Calling reflexes. Page morph. Yeah, so this also uses the morphing thing. I think this is kind of cool. But then again... yeah, so K-Ready's really popular. K-Ready's like... There's a thing called active cable. Action cable? Active cable, whatever it's called. Anyway, it's the WebSockets thing inside Rails by default. And it's... alright, I quite like it. It's just pretty easy to use. It's pretty straightforward. It's quite nice. And this all goes through cable ready, which is like a drop-in replacement for it, which apparently is just the one to... No, is it any cable? Or cable? I can't remember. Hang on, let's do any cable Rails. Any cable. And this is, I think, by the... So what's the difference between any cable and cable ready? Oh, so cable ready versus any cable. Any action versus any cable. But okay, cable ready depends on action cable. Thought so. So okay, cable ready is better than action cable. So, cause I think cable ready is more like, so you've got this thing inside Rails, especially now, where you can do like broadcasts from controllers. And I think KBody just has a greater set of verbs or something. I don't know enough about it. Any cable. Well, there we go. Okay. So. Okay. Carries morphs, modes morphs, and some selector morphs in HTML. Blah, blah, blah. So. Yeah, because I watched the talk from that Marco Roth guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, let's just use Hotwire instead," and this just seems like just kind of better, to be honest. So reflex callbacks. Yeah, you can do. Yeah, so this is basically what like turbo streams are, right? Before reflex, around reflex, after reflex. So yeah, this is like. No, that's not really. These are callbacks. These are like actual callbacks, but like inside a controller, you will also say like, yeah. Like, can you do before? Can you? I can't remember. I don't think you can actually. This is a lot easier to reason about. I think aborting a reflex. I might actually give this a go. You know. Well, then again, like, is it? I don't know. Again, I'm pretty. I don't get why, like. Oh, and it works with can. Huh. And Pundit. These two authorization gems that are both really good. There's one I quite like, not one of these, but I think Pundit's the one to go. Was it Pundit or can? I can't remember which one's the one that I wanted to use. I've not done any of that yet because I don't need to, right? Yet for this thing I'm about to do, but yeah, it does look cool. Persistent, 80% of the pain points. Yep, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, there's no mounting process, no fetching JSON from API. Request goes through the Rails route to the action pack. So yeah, only once HTML page is displayed in your browser, Stimulus wakes up. First, it opens a WebSocket connection and waits for the messages. Then it scans your DOM for elements of data reflex attributes. Those attributes become event handlers that map to methods. Okay. In Stimulus controllers, the controllers connect events to your browser. Yeah, so this is like way more sensible than Hotwire. In the reflex method, you can call active record, access data from Redis and Rails. So I'm going to I might just jump over a set. I want to rewatch this talk from the Marco Roth guy on Stimulus Reflex versus Hotwire. I watched it previously, but I want to watch it again now that I've had at least a cursory glance over Stimulus Reflex. I just knew about it, but now I've looked at it in not an anger. I've not written any, but interesting. But yeah. Actually, part of the pain that people talk about in terms of front end stuff in Ember World is actually pretty well handled for you. So